Hey, Mike here. So still messing around with some of this copper spinning. Built a metal spinning setup. Basically, it's just the wood lathe, and then there's a couple modifications like this tool rest and some tooling and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Copper is very pretty forgiving, pretty easy to work with. You can spread it around a lot. So I've been running it for about 2 days. I just mess around. Different things I like to try. This one I actually did yesterday. Piece of 1/2 inch water pipe. I tried to open it up a lot, and this one didn't crack. I didn't get it too thin there, but actually, what happened was I was gonna get ready to smooth this all out, and I was kind of trying to make a little goblet kind of thing, and fold the bottom in. Anyway, it broke off, so I didn't get to finish that piece. But with the piece that was left, it's just a piece of pipe. This is really neat. It's kind of hard to explain what you're looking at here, but this was basically the end of the pipe. This was the end here. The pipe went this way, and I folded the end over on itself, and then I actually pushed it back in. And as I pushed it in, this is actually the end of the piece of pipe right there. As I was pushing the tool back in there and forcing the copper back in on itself, this little thing, it won't focus there, was shooting out, and you can actually see it's not round, it's kind of a star shape, so it's all folded in kind of like that. It's really neat. And then I just kept pushing and pushing until finally it snapped off, and then I was working the outside of this, and this thing popped out, so I got a little button there, but you can see the general shape of it, see a hole in the center. So that's really neat, and that was as far as I got last night. Today I kind of tried that again with a piece that was left over from another, so I folded that in on itself, but I don't have a little thingy sticking out of that. See this one, I actually folded that one in on itself, but I don't have a trimming tool yet. I have some tool steel and some high-speed steel. I got to make a trimming tool, but I used the planishing side of my round nose tool a little bit on that, kind of smooth that out, so it's got a little ripple in one spot there. But I went through several different designs. Actually, this had some designs in it, and I kind of smoothed them out. So if I would have started off with the intention of making that nice and smooth like that, kind of reminds me of like a rook, like a chess piece or something. But I just kind of go wherever the copper kind of takes me, whatever seems to start coming out. This piece is actually pretty nice because I was actually able to successfully expand 1/2 inch copper and open it up pretty good. It was going to be a round kind of tulip shape, but it ended up taking this shape once I had kind of blown this up, and then I decided to go back here and push copper up there, trying to thicken it a little bit up there so I could continue to pull it out, and I ended up with this hard ridge, and then I just kind of went with it and then came back here and kind of made it a nice little that was actually the first place that I started to use my planishing tool. Excuse me, second place. That was the first one. So this is really boring, but I think it's interesting. And this was just a piece I stuck in there, and I just started to narrow it and made a pretty decent cone. Got a little ripple to it. The copper itself was a little wasn't quite round. This was actually, I think it was this piece. This was all one piece of tubing. It was about that long. And then once I finished this, I cut it off, and then I extended this all the way out. Like I said, it had a little wobble to it, and once I shut it off and slowed it down, you could see the wobble that this had. So it was actually kind of difficult to get that to run out, but I used the planishing side of my round nose chisel, just kind of kept working that out to a point. I never really trimmed this. I should have trimmed this a couple of times as I was working it out to end up with a nice round hole. It's got a little hairy on the end there, but it's pretty neat. So eventually I'm going to get a mandrel, make a mandrel of some sort that I can turn the copper down onto whenever I want to make an ejector. I'll have, like this for instance would be the divergent nozzle of my ejector, and then the convergent nozzle would be much more pronounced, probably more of an angle like that, and then a long tube. So that's pretty much it. Just things that I've found out. Definitely once it starts to get kind of hard to work and a lot of the copper seems to be wanting to come off and chip off, comes off in like a fine powder, fine dust. You can see it flying, and it builds up on the tool. I found there's two things that will help to address that. Excuse me, three things. The first is just lubricant. I'm still using finishing wax for like woodworking. It's really not ideal. I need to get something else. But you know, keep it lubed up. You don't want it running dry. Once it's dry, it starts to heat the copper up, and the copper starts to chip off. The copper also starts to stick to the tool here too. So I try to keep this thing cleaned off and polish it periodically. I just have a little buffing wheel on the drill, and I'll just run it on that a little bit, just to kind of give it a little shine and smooth it out. That seems to help. And then the other thing, and probably the biggest thing, is to keep the copper annealed. I'll heat the copper up, get it up to annealing temperature, even maybe a little red hot, for good measure, and I'll just take a wet rag and cool it down real quick. If I don't do that and I try to apply wax right to it, it's just going to smoke the wax, and it, you know, stinks, and it's not good for me. So I just cool it down a little bit with a wet rag, then hit it with some wax to lubricate it, re-lubricate after I've cleaned my tool off, and then continue working the copper, doing whatever I'm doing. I'm finding that with certain techniques I can get away with not having to anneal so often, but a lot of this stuff I'm just messing around and having a lot of fun and trying different things, and then going back on my decision and stuff. So anyway, that's just a little update there. So if anybody's interested, and I did get I've ordered some parts for my lathe. I have a whole set, a 7-piece set of collets that along with the drawbar, they're going to be an insert in the headstock of my lathe behind my 4-jaw chuck here. So I will be able to put one of these collets in there, put a piece of rod, like for instance a 1/4-inch steel rod, and then with the drawbar on the back I'll be able to tighten it down so that that bar will stick out through my workpiece, and that way I could actually, you know, well, for instance, like this cone, if I wanted to turn that down and then leave exactly 1/4-inch hole, kind of sleeve, that I could put a piece of 1/4-inch tubing in and braze it. So that's kind of the idea there. One of the ideas. And the other one is the other piece that I got. This is just a drill chuck, 1/2-inch drill chuck with a MT2. That's a number 2 Morse taper. But this thing is solidly fixed in my tailstock, and so I want something that will rotate to support that rod or to support a workpiece in the 4-jaw chuck. So I have a revolving arbor, essentially, that's coming, that will replace this, such that this thing will spin, so I can put my 1/4-inch rod or whatever piece in there, and that will spin and help to support the whole piece. So I'm looking forward to both of those additions to help me out. And also I need to get my cutting tool built, and right now the round nose tool is working just fine, although I need to improve on the handle a little bit. This was supposed to be temporary, and I've just been having so much fun with the copper that it's remained semi-permanent. And this is New Belgium seasonal heavy melon, watermelon lime ale. It's about as good as you'd think it would be. It's good for 1 6-pack, and that's about it. Alright, thanks for watching.